A CBS News poll shows 1 year after the deadly white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, 61% of Americans say racial tensions are on the rise. That number is even higher among African Americans. White supremacists are holding another Unite the Right rally in Washington, D.C. Sunday. Margaret Brennan spoke with Virginia Senator Tim Kaine on Face the Nation.
You have raised the issue of race and discrimination as directly tied to how the president discusses immigration as a national security threat. What do you mean by that? Because he makes the case this is just about security, this is just about stopping child traffickers, and he's about rule of law.
He used vulgar language to describe certain countries. He uses unfair stereotypes. Mexicans are rapists and criminals. I mean, give me a break. He will suggest that everybody who comes to the border is a member of MS-13. Give me a break. I mean, the statistics show that that's not true. So when somebody perpetuates a stereotype that's false, you have to ask, why are they doing that? And I think he is stoking division, and it's against folks from, third world countries, folks whose skin color are different than his, folks whose religion he doesn't approve of.
The Supreme Court upheld the travel ban that was predominantly applied to Muslim-majority countries.
They upheld version 3 after version 1 was struck down. After version 2 was struck down, they finally did a version that could limp across the finish line in the Supreme Court by a 5-4 vote. But even in that approval, the court called out the president's language. I mean, look, the burden that's on the shoulder of any of us in leadership now is to try to pull this country together, not divide people. What I challenge the president on is I don't think he's behaving like a for-all guy. He is behaving in a way that divides people from one another, and we got to have leaders at all levels who stand up and make plain that we are a for-all nation, a for-all commonwealth.
Joining me now is Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan. So, Margaret, what did Senator Kaine say has changed in Virginia since the Charlottesville rally?
Well, Senator Tim Kaine, who, of course, as a Democrat, was on the ticket of Hillary Clinton when she was President Trump's main challenger in 2016, didn't mince words. He has said that really he sees the divisions along racial lines in this country as being amplified and really used for political gain by the president, particularly in the wake of Charlottesville. But he did find some bright spots, he said, within his own state. We should point out he is running for re-election to that Senate seat he holds. But he was saying on the Democratic ticket, they have seen within the state a number of minorities gain more influence, particularly in local elected positions. His argument is really one that he's saying as a party, he sees an attempt there to be more inclusive that he wishes the president would adopt in his own language. But he admitted in the course of our conversation that these demonstrations we saw, these Unite the Right rally participants who have white supremacist views, probably had them before President Trump was elected. He wasn't putting this solely on the president's doorstep, but he was saying that these these dog whistle phrases that are often employed are something that he says are being used perhaps cynically, he said, by the president.
Well, one thing that's changed is the mayor of Charlottesville, Nikuyah Walker. Despite the backlash, those Confederate monuments remain, and here's what she had to say about that.
What I often say to people is you have to have people who want to be on the right side of history. While, the law is the way that it is now, we have a judge at our circuit court. He's creative and working around whatever legal measures, are in place for us to take the statue down. It seems to be a lot of, support and research from his direction into making sure that it can stay up.
So Walker was inspired to run by the Unite the Right rally. What is she doing to try to ease racial tensions in the city?
Well, Mayor Walker is very frustrated, and she made that very clear in the course of our conversation, because she thinks that there is too much focus on the rallies and the symbols, not enough focus on some of the deep-seated racism. She says the socioeconomic issues in her own community include a lack of housing, a lack of wage growth, and the fact that so many within the community are in these service roles around what is a glossy, very wealthy area, but that they haven't benefited from. So she's very much focused on that micro community level, but wants to have what she said are often uncomfortable conversations. And she's found resistance within her own community because it's just not advantageous to do that for businesses. Tourism is so key to that community that sort of emphasizing the sins over the successes is deeply unpopular. But it gets at this broader idea of if you don't talk about things, how do you move past them? And that's why we wanted to have this conversation on this program a year later, which is not to emphasize the divide, but to talk about what's driving it. And I thought it was interesting that we also spoke to Senator Tim Scott, a Republican, who is an ally of the president on many, many issues, but was a harsh critic of some of the language he used last year in not being more careful and clear in condemning the white separatists and white nationalists that this year are demonstrating in front of the White House. Senator Scott says in reality that low African-American unemployment rate, some of the willingness the president has now had to engage shows that he's regained moral authority. But on that local level, the contrast that the mayor was saying, she's saying it's not trickling down and that there is a bigger national conversation that needs to happen.
And it is so critically important to continue those conversations, even as difficult as they are. Margaret Brennan, thank you so much, Margaret.
Thank you.